Hey everyone, I'm Will with EVOQ.
And I'm Landry. We're coaches, and we're gonna walk you through each stage of Gila and provide you with course details, race breakdown, tactics, and even some training sessions that will help get you ready for a tour of the Gila.
Stay tuned. Hope you enjoy. First, we're going to talk about stage one of the amateur race, which is coincidentally stage two of the UCI race. This is called the Inner Loop Road Race. It's got plenty of climbs and descents to keep it pretty exciting the whole time. Let's jump into the actual course. Landry, when's the last time you did this particular course?
Oh man, I've done this race 4 times, but I think it was probably about 5 years ago that I did this particular course, and it's tough. It's relentless. You're either climbing or descending or following attacks in the valley. But it's a ton of fun. I think it's one of the funnest road race courses I've ever done for sure. So, but you need to be prepared for a little bit of everything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. This can break down into a breakaway, or I've had it come to a sprint most of the time, like a reduced bunch sprint, plenty of times. So yeah, you do have to be prepared and a really well-rounded rider to do well at this course. Let's
hmm
start off with yeah, these first climbs here. What are we thinking for these? How should people prepare for these first little segments, knowing the rest of this is to come?
Yeah, I mean, for one, you want to try and start at the front and stay at the front if possible. And I mean, honestly, make sure that you're warmed up before the race even starts. You might think it's a road race, so you don't need a warm up, but a lot of times the attacks they start from the gun, like right out of the start gate. And I've seen people attack on like the first few rollers on the highway, and they get a couple guys going with them, and they're gone, and they got minutes on the field. So you need to be warmed up from the gun because it's gonna be most likely nonstop action from the beginning. And then yeah, you can see you've got some long drags. You got the first drag up to Pinos Altos, which is usually really hard. A lot of times people will be attacking it there or trying to split up the field. Um, and then you've got some descending as well. So you need to be prepared for windy one lane descents. So if you have the opportunity to practice descending at all in your area, you need to make sure you're comfortable with descending because if you're not, you could potentially get gapped from the field and either you could waste a lot of energy trying to get back on or even just like get dropped altogether if the pace is really high. So
Now, there's some super consequential descents. A few of these over here are like flat almost, but very windy roads. And like
mhm,
you're going pretty fast through them. Like you're pedaling hard and you're gassed from that climb. So it's super important just to like keep your head up and follow that wheel in front of you. But a lot of these descents are like kind of treacherous if you take them too far. So have that
mhm,
skill built up and be prepared for some nonsense
yeah.
on those descents for sure.
The one really tricky descent is the Sapio descent. Right after those first climbs down into the valley, it's very I don't want to say treacherous, but it's pretty tricky. There's gonna be a few blind corners to start that can catch you off guard that you actually will need to brake for a little bit, most likely. Um, so just be cautious. You're not gonna win the race necessarily on the descent, but you could definitely lose the race on the descent. Um, and then once you get a little bit further down, there's going to be a bunch of hairpins. And I find once you get to there, it's a little bit more straightforward because you're not actually really able to go that fast on that section. But be prepared for some really fast, like sweeping corners at the start of that descent. And then you get to the valley, and then you're pretty much smooth sailing from there. You're not really going to see any other descents from then on.
Yeah, the valley is kind of a hard part too. It's more rolly than you would imagine it is. A lot of the times people are like pretty toast through that. There was one year where we were chasing a break back through that valley and like we dropped so many people on what is like pretty much the flattest part of the whole stage. So definitely save some for that valley area and like hang on. It's not the slowest part of the American circuit. But after the valley, you have this descent or this climb, which is, I think there's a feed zone on this one here. It's steady, 3%, 3.5 miles. It doesn't look super uphill, but that whole climb there is, it's a grind. It is a grind.
Oh yeah, it's it's brutal because it's you can see the top and you can see how far you have to go. And I mean, you at least in my experience, by the time I get to that climb, I am definitely hurting. And you have to remind yourself, like, if you can just get over these hills and get to that last descent, like you're gonna be in contention, especially if the brake has been caught or hasn't gone. Um, Usually, most of the time, it comes down to a reduced sprint finish. So if you can just get over those last climbs, I imagine by that point, a lot of guys will have been dropped. So there's a good chance that you can get a result. And just remind yourself, like everybody else is hurting just as much as you are. So um, yeah, don't give up on those last climbs because I know one year I did that and I majorly regretted it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've been distanced on that feed zone climb before, and the little roll into town, you can see the group for such a long distance and just like regretting
mm-hmm.
having let that wheel go. But that brings us into kind of this finish section here. It is kind of hilly. There are little lumps here. I've seen little breakaways go and like people try and solo this, but all in all, it's a very fast section for the most part. How have you seen this race break down in the end?
Yeah, I mean, it's really once you make that right turn into the finishing straight, it's like you have to be like very close to the front because once you make that right turn, like it's gonna be very difficult to get around people if you're not in position by the time you get off that main highway. You're probably gonna have a very hard time actually being in the right position. So I think before the second to last turn, once you turn on to Highway 180, you already want to be in the good position, not at the front, but you want to be in a good position to be able to sprint because once you make the right turn into Fort Bayard, it's a pretty narrow-ish road, and it's not easy to get around people. So
Yeah, absolutely. This past year, I was like second to last lead out guy, and our sprinter got distance, but I was like first into this last little bend here, which is 400 meters out when I started to kick, and I think I ended up like fourth place by the finish, but it was such a long sprint. Like you don't want to be first
mm-hmm,
into this little
mm-hmm.
bend here unless you've got a gap on the guys behind, because that is quite a long straight. But it's hard to move up past that. So you want to be up front, but not on the front through that little segment if you're
Yeah,
in that lead group.
yeah, and this is a sprint where it really helps to have a lead out. So if you've got a team and you've got a few teammates still with you, and they know that you're like the fastest sprinter there, like have a conversation about it, even before the stage starts. Like, hey, if we're all together, we're gonna lead you out. And I mean, at that point, you're all gonna be finishing pretty much on the same time, anyways. So nobody's gonna have to worry about losing time on GC, and you can just try to go for the stage.
Absolutely. So that's stage one, the inner loop road race. Hope you enjoyed that. If you're interested in more info from us, get in touch with us. Landry's going to tell you how to do that.
Just head over to our website, evoke.bike. That's EVOQ.bike. And we have tons of content there, loads of blog content. If you want to get in touch with us, my email is landry at evoke bike and Will is will at evoke bike. We've also got YouTube, podcast, anything that you need to help get you faster. So go on and check that out.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.